This summer is absolutely packed with horror new releases, including from some of the most trending authors like Riley Sager and Paul Tremblay. But which ones am I adding to my TBR list? Hey guys, and welcome back. Today I want to share with you my most anticipated horror book new releases of summer 2024. For me and a lot of others, I think that summer is the time where we read the most books, except for maybe this year because I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling, so let me know if you want to see some of that. But there's definitely a lot of books to get excited about, so let's get started. So with the first release of this summer, we have Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, which is expected on June 11th. In June 1993, a group of young guerrilla filmmakers spent 4 weeks making Horror Movie, a notorious, disturbing art house flick. The weird part, only 3 of the film's scenes survived. But Horror Movie has nevertheless grown a rabid fan base. 3 decades later, Hollywood is pushing for a big budget reboot. So this one kind of reminds me of Mr. Magic, which I read this year. In Mr. Magic, the premise is that there was a famous children's TV show that there's not much information about it left to this day, and they're all coming back together to film a podcast reboot. Obviously, this one's a little different. There's not that children's television show aspect. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be as big of a cosmic horror as Mr. Magic was, which actually I'm looking forward to. I'm not a huge fan of cosmic horror in general. Now, the reason I'm excited for this is because I haven't read a ton of Paul Tremblay books. I read A Head Full of Ghosts, I think 2 years ago now, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really want to read more of Paul Tremblay's books, but I'm just not excited to read any of the stuff that he has out now, even though I really liked A Head Full of Ghosts, and I think I like this premise. So definitely one that I'm intrigued about that I probably will be reading. Probably not one that I'm going to grab on release day, buy for myself. Probably one that I'll end up reading towards the end of the year, kind of when the fervor of it has died down, and I can probably get a copy from my local library. But definitely one that I'm anticipating seeing what it is like. I'm excited to hear more and hear what other people think. So this next one seems like it's absolutely everybody's most anticipated horror book, and that is Cuckoo by Gretchen Faulkner Martin. This one we're supposed to get also on June 11th. The tagline for this one, something evil is buried deep in the desert. It wants your body, it wears your skin. At Camp Resolution, everyone leaves a different person. So this is a horror book set at a remote conversion camp. So conversion camps, queer youth heading there to be made straight through various different methods. This one sounds like it has a little horror cosmic maybe twist to it. What happens to these kids in real life is horrifying enough, so I'm excited to kind of see where the horror book takes it. It's definitely a unique angle, something that I've never seen done before. So for that alone, I'm excited to read this, and it's quite literally on every single most anticipated horror book list that I've discovered. I've actually never heard of this author before. She does have one other book out called Manhunt. That one, based on the description, I don't think I have much of a desire to read, but people do seem to really enjoy it. This book actually kind of reminds me of The Troop, just in the fact that there's going to be kids in a remote location, Boy Scouts, and even though it's not a real camp, Boy Scouts, camp, conversion camp, all kind of mixed together in my head. They seem like they would all really fit, so I'm kind of drawing some parallels to that, as well as knowing that her last book was about a virus, The Troop's about a virus, so I'm kind of connecting the 3 of them together. We'll see if they actually deserve to be connected once the book's released. Honestly, this one's a little bit of peer pressure. It's literally everyone's most anticipated book, so I want to see what all the hype's about. Everyone is so excited to read this, so I want to give it a go. So just a week later, we'll have 2 more releases. The first one I want to talk about is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kluwer. As a young queer couple who flips houses, Charlie and Eve can't believe the killer deal they've gotten on an old house in a picturesque neighborhood. As they're working on the house one day, there's a knock at the door. A man stands there with his family, claiming to have lived there before, and asking if it would be alright if he showed his kids around. Strange things happen from there. So this story originally started out as a thread on Reddit and has kind of grown from there, and not only is it getting this longer version, but it's also going to be getting a Netflix movie coming soon. It reminds me of the story Where Is Here by Joyce Carol Oates. It's a short story that came out in the 90s. I actually teach it in part of my curriculum, and it has the exact same premise, so I'm kind of confused why I'm not seeing more people compare them. But that one has the exact same premise. A man comes to a house claiming he used to live there and asks to be shown around. I don't know how much more similar it can get, but apparently I'm the only one drawing those connections. That's actually the main reason I'm interested in reading it. I like to read a lot of those adaptations of the stories that I teach in class. There's been a lot of It's why I've been so excited to read a lot of the Fall of the House of Usher books that have been released over the years. But most other people are excited to see one of their favorite Reddit threads kind of be adapted into a longer length book. And the second other highly anticipated book that will be released on June 18th is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. A man must contend with the long ago disappearance of his childhood best friend and the dark secrets lurking just beyond the safe confines of his picture-perfect neighborhood. So this is actually the first book by Riley Sager that will star a male main character, which I'm very excited for because I have a big problem with the way he writes women. I actually made a TikTok kind of about my outs for reading in 2024, and terrible female characters is one of them, and I just feel like a lot of Riley Sager's female characters are just very horrible people, but not horrible for a purpose. I just feel like it's kind of like we wanted to move away from the stereotypes of what women are supposed to be like, and we just shifted into the other direction, and now so many female characters that I read, they're just like bad without a purpose. So obviously you can't write a bad female main character when your main character is a male, so I'm excited for that. I've read many of Riley Sager's books, definitely not all of them, but all of them I have liked. They haven't all been 5-star reads, but none of them have gotten below a 3-star. None of them might have even had below a 4-star. They're all incredibly gripping, they're fast to read, they're full of twists, definitely can't predict where Middle of the Night's gonna end up. So I think for that reason alone that they're a pretty safe bet for me that I'm gonna like it. I think I'm going to end up reading Middle of the Night pretty close to once it comes out. So I actually have one in July, and that is Stay on the Line by Clay McLeod Chapman. And this book will come out on July 30th, so right at the end of July. After a small coastal town is devastated by a hurricane, the survivors gravitate toward a long out-of-service payphone in hopes of talking out their grief and saying goodbye to loved ones. As more townspeople answer the call, friends and family believed to have been lost to the storm begin searching for a way home. So I read Ghost Eaters by this author, and I absolutely loved it. I don't remember if it actually ended up being a 5-star, but it's definitely one that I still remember to this day and still to this day really enjoyed. Ghost Eaters was such an original idea and he executed it so well. Not that I'm a very creative person, but I definitely could have never come up with the idea of Ghost Eaters on my own. So for that alone, I respect it a ton, but it also ended up being a really good book. So because of the greatness of Ghost Eaters, it's pretty much the only reason that I'm looking forward to this book, just because I really enjoyed that story. I also really enjoy survival horror, and I have to imagine that this is going to be a survival horror story. The way that the blurb is written kind of makes it seem like they can't get off the island, and so they're stuck here, and this is their one way out / to the afterlife, and so I like that there's going to be some other element here. Not only do they have to deal with the paranormal elements that are happening, but I think they're also going to have to contend with nature in this one. And that really makes a story enjoyable, having those multiple elements kind of going in at once. So another beloved author is releasing a new novel, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This one is expected to be released on August 4th. Set in Florida in 1970, Grady Hendrix's newest novel follows a group of young women in a home for unwed mothers who find a guide to witchcraft. Now, I saw on Reddit that this one's possibly delayed till 2025. I couldn't find anything else to verify that, and Google Books says that it's still expected on August 4th. But there's literally no information out there on the book. There's not a cover, there's not a blurb that's longer than one sentence, so I feel like the evidence is pointing to the fact that it's not going to be released on August 4th, but who knows? Everyone's still saying it's going to be released then. I don't know if I believe that, but I am still looking forward to it. So kind of similar to Paul Tremblay, I read Horror Store by Grady Hendrix and I loved it a lot. It's one of the books that I recommend to anyone who's looking to get into the horror genre. I've been really wanting to read another Grady Hendrix book, but since they're all kind of quirky, I wanted to find one that I kind of liked the premise already. Like the IKEA setting in Horror Store, I thought that was so original and so fun, so I was really excited to read it. And with other books I just haven't felt the same way about, just based on what I know about them from their blurbs. I think this one does entice me though, which is why I'm looking forward to it. I have kind of a natural, I read a book in high school about homes for unwed mothers, so I already kind of have some background knowledge there that would play to my interests, I guess, so I'm kind of looking forward to that one. We'll see if it's released this year. All right, so last but not least, and I think I'm most excited about this one, it is Ghost Mother by Kelly Dwyer. We're expected to get this one on August 6th. A woman is struggling to have a baby and gets pulled to a small town in Wisconsin from Chicago. She falls in love with a decrepit old manor but begins experiencing paranormal phenomenon. Is she crazy? Is the house haunted? Who knows? I guess we'll find out in August. So the bio says it's reminiscent of The Haunting of Hill House and The Turn of the Screw, both of which I really enjoy, so This is a little bit of nepotism, but for books. I love The Haunting of Hill House. Frankly, I'm gonna read anything that says it's reminiscent of it. And I agree, based on the description, that it is kind of the unreliable narrator, becomes obsessed with the home, so I'm interested to kind of see where this one ends up. I also love stories that are set in these big, old, kind of decrepit mansions in the middle of nowhere. Again, I think that adds a really interesting element, right? You can't just flee the house because it's in the middle of nowhere. You might not be able to get out. The other element that I'm excited for is that this obviously is going to comment on motherhood and infertility some way. I've always been very interested in the way that mothers are depicted in media, specifically in books, movies, and television. I was actually gonna write my master's thesis about it if I ended up going for media studies. So this just really plays into my natural interest. It's semi-related to The Haunting of Hill House, comments on motherhood, awesome setting right up my alley. What more could I ask for in a book? So those are all the books that I'm looking forward to being released this summer, 2024. They're probably not ones that I'm all gonna be able to necessarily read before the end of the year, just because I kind of have a little bit of backlog to get through, but ideally I'll be able to read these in the next couple of months and kind of let you know if they ended up being worth it, if they lived up to the hype. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below what new releases you are looking forward to this year, and I will see you next time.